So they they take a look at it and try to tell you what went wrong, and they say the first error was that we failed to examine our teachers to see if they could in truth teach. And they say, don't misunderstand us. We don't wish to suggest that all our teachers were poor teachers. Most were excellent teachers, but we got them to teach for what now is said to be the wrong reason. The reason? How do we get these people to teach? And why is it the wrong reason? The reason, they say, was the pay was horrible. Only those who love to teach would choose teaching as a profession. Remember that fact too as we go on. So now we have the error in the system that was that we really don't test the people that are going to be our teachers to see if they can teach. And the second problem is that the teachers that went in there with a horrible pay grade, and they went in there because they love to teach, not because they're going to make any money. And why is that an error? Oh yeah. Now they make pretty good money, and I talk to teachers all the time. They cry and moan, that they don't make very much money, but if you get 3 months off in the summer, and you get health and retirement, and when you add all that up, they do okay. If you do it by the hour, they do pretty good. And I know they'll tell you they go home and do this and do that. Well, I know teachers, and I know a whole lot of them don't. I'm not saying that some don't, but a whole lot of them don't do anything when they get home. So, if you had a People's Trust News investigators investigating teachers, I can just about assure you that probably 80% of them would shut up, or at least quit arguing. No, they're unionized, and they're going to be stomping and romping, and I get to the point where I'm with them. They don't care. They don't care how much you scream and holler. They don't care. You're there to teach children, and they want you to teach children, and it would appear to them at least that the teachers aren't teaching children, or at least not to the level we want. So what they've indicated is that the first error is that there was no good test to determine if a teacher could teach. The kind of a break line there was that the teachers that went into the teaching profession only went in because they loved it, because the pay wasn't worth a hoot. That's kind of changed, so that's the first error. The second error came from in the form of the test. How do you test to see if a child has learned a subject? Oh, see, now here's where I can see where they're going, and I can see where the teachers are going to scream and holler now, and they're going to be not going to come out too good on this one. Again, we will suggest some concept and allow you to come to the understanding needed. Number one, is the short-term remembering the same as learning? And that's their first question. I'm going to say absolutely not. I mean, it's the long-term that's remembering. So if you test them on short-term, that's kind of like, you haven't learned whether they've learned anything or not. How long is long-term memory? That's the second question. You see where they're going? Number three, is the intent to learn a subject or be able to use the information in real life? Oh, hurt me. Because I was in school, I know what this is all about. I know what they're trying to say. Number four, isn't it just as important to know where and how to find the information as to memorize it? And they say go back to question number two. Okay, number five, is there only one means of testing? In other words, is the written test the only valid means? Could a child learn to cheat on a test? Could an adult, that's number six, could an adult in need of a place to have his or her own little dominion choose the school system? After all, the that adult found that he or she fell far short in the real world, could that need for dominion express itself in his or her test given to the student? Could it express itself as he or she teaches, and the student realizes that it's giving the teacher what he or she wants, not what you learn, that counts? Oh, what they say there? Could you be? You understand what they're saying? They're saying these people that want to be dictators, and they can't make it in real life. And real life is not the military and not schools, and not prison. It's out there in the real world where nobody gets any credit for making it in the real world, and we should, because the school system is a way easier to become a dictator, and the army, obviously, military, and places like that. But a school system is kind of a closed system, and you can have this wonderful little world of being a dictator. And so they say, could that need for dominion express itself in his or her test given to the student? Could that need to be a dictator express itself in the poor student realizing that giving the teacher what he or she wants is more important than learning? And those are questions they're asking you to make a point, and the point's well made, and I don't think anybody's going to. There are people that you don't have that problem with, and those are the people that are going to jump up and down and cry. And when if you were to take them and examine their work in school and stuff, they pass with flying colors because they're teachers. But not one of them is going to say that's in a school of any size. There isn't one of them that isn't going to say that there are some teachers that do that. Well, we're paying these people to teach our children. We're not paying them to be dominion people or dictators. So they're pointing out the second problem. Okay, second problem is kind of a big one. They say each question should give you hours of examination into the process of the intelligence schemes. Make one thing equal to another, make another thing equal to the second, and so on until the final thing is equal to the first. Make written test scores under tremendous pressure equal to the amount that a student learned in school. What? Make the written test score under tremendous pressure by people who don't do written tests very well equal to what they've learned in school. And they say, we think not. We don't see that as being valid, So they go on and say, for those who don't get the problem, just ask yourself how valid you felt school tests were in terms of what you learned and what others learned. Now look at where you are and where they are in life and ask the same question. Did school ready you for life? Did it even ready you for the job you're now employed in? If you didn't spend some time back there with the other questions, you should spend time with this one. I've never asked anybody so far that had been in university other than a tech, somebody who was specifically learning a specific technician job. I never met anybody that ever said that what they learned in college or the university did anything for the job. They had to learn what to do in the job after they got out of the school system. That isn't well, I mean, come on, that's what they're saying, and that's the point. And what they're saying is, what are they actually saying? They're saying, number one, you don't test to find out what a person really knows, so you don't know whether you're educating the student or not. You just test for the people that have short-term memories and know what the teacher wants. And the teacher wants to teach the student, one would hope, but what if the teacher just wanted to be a dictator? Well, did the scores reflect what they were intended to? Did the A student truly become an A adult, an A parent, an A husband or wife, an A employee, an A citizen of this country, of this world? And because they're asking the questions, you got to sit down and say, I knew, like 10A students. I don't see them to be any different than anybody else now that they're out of school. I don't see that they weren't pretty much the same. Let's see. So error 2 is that we allowed them to tell us that test scores were a valid measure of the student's progress and ability. Also hidden in that concept is the idea that scores also proved that the school system worked. Also hidden in that concept is the idea that those scores, those A, B's, and C's, prove that the school system worked, and they just pointed out that the scores were not valid. Just pointed out many, many reasons to indicate that or at least investigation is needed, because it would appear that that test score is not valid. So they're getting in there. They're digging in to find out why school systems aren't working. So they say, okay, how about error 3? So we have pointed out 2 errors in the school system that were eventually amplified into huge problems. The next problem came in the fact that the intelligence games players found the school system and began to work it. They know how to work a bureaucracy by now, and the school system is a bureaucracy. The aim was more money and more security. More money and more security. They managed to accomplish both with the union, if you will. Again, we say not against unions, but you can't collect a whole group of people and lock them up and make them one person and expect the economy to continue to go the way it should. And they've pointed that out over and over again. But now they're saying that we have these game players, and they came over to the school system specifically because they could see that they could play their games. So they say now, rather than good teachers because of the poor pay, we began to get the game players. How did they get the game to work? We have already pointed out that the test scores were becoming equal to both the teacher's ability to teach and the student's level of learning. As those who were hired to teach teachers how to teach, the professors we're talking about now, were doing the job, it became obvious that it was too much work. There was too much work. Now, you understand, these professors are really bright people, and most of them were expected to also, write theses or books or, papers that showed how bright they were. And the more papers the school had of professors that were very, very bright, the more likely people were going to come to that school because they had bright professors. Well, the professor is saying, hold on here a minute, you want me to teach these students, that's a job, and then you want me to write this doctorate or even above that, and so that you can get people to come here because we're so smart. It's too much work. And so they pass their duties on to a lot of their duties onto the administration, and the administration was happy to take all the load right off the professors. So now you look at it and you say, well, so what? Well, the problem is that administrators are bureaucrats. That being so, you'll soon find the best intelligence games players entering that arena. What did they say? They said, what you're going to have is the same problem you have with every bureaucracy. The bureaucrats end up at the top. Who's at the top? The decision makers. Oh, well, you have bureaucrats who are money people, and they play the bureaucracy game. They're at the top making decisions. What are the decisions? Who to educate, how to educate, how much to pay the educators, what is education. They make all the decisions. So here you are with these bureaucratic intelligence game players right at the top making these decisions. Now we have professors no longer deciding whether a student is qualified to teach, a process that was defective in the first place. The administration will make that determination, thank you. What's wrong with that, you ask? Well, let's see. If a professor gives a test and the son or daughter of a wealthy contributor in the college fails, could that failed grade be changed? Would the intelligence games players do that? If administration hires and fires, could they put any pressure on a professor to tamper with the grades? The intelligence game players wouldn't do that, would they? The game players wouldn't let the latest tests that the professor's going to give slip into the hands of certain fraternities or sororities, would they? So those fraternities could have people that would pass with flying colors. Would they do that and not check to see if the student knew too much? And if all that and more happened, just what would those test scores truly equal? Now, what did they say? They said if you have a very wealthy man and he's going to contribute to the college fund, would the administration have any tendency to make darn sure his son or daughter passed with flying colors? No, they wouldn't have any problem doing that. And how would they do that? They take the test that the professor's going to give and they give it to the student who's in a fraternity along with all the other rich kids. You understand? And what they're saying then is if that's happening, and it is, if that's happening, then what does the test score really equal? So they say, now let's go back and see where we are. The ability to teach is equal to the test score. The test score is equal to your ability to take the tests, which means short-term memory, how well the professor likes you, which is dominion, how wealthy your father is, mother is, what fraternity or sorority you're allowed to join, and other unrelated factors. Now they added the most holy degree. The ability to teach becomes equal to the degree. You understand? All of a sudden, the ability to teach has nothing to do with the degree. And that's kind of what they're saying over and over and over again. In this whole book, the degree is the holy degree, and somewhere in here they're going to get down to what the degree actually is, and it's probably in here. So we'll just wait for them to go ahead and do it. What does a degree actually mean? And what do you think it means? And always, because of advertising, what you think it means has nothing to do with what it really means. So what they say is all that's left is to make it possible for all the intelligence game players and the children to get that degree and get it easily, because the teachers of our children, these are teachers of our children. They have degree, and thus they tell you they can teach. They're smart enough to develop the concept of tenure and the concept that you can only expect good teachers if you pay good wages. And voila, they're in the game. Next, they refine the game a little, and it becomes a game of dominion, and all of a sudden you've got dictatorial teachers that are having fun in the school, I guess. Rather than good teachers, we now have game-playing bureaucrats who can. The question is, who can polish the apple best? Who's the best bureaucrat? Polish the apple, or who's the best bureaucrat? Not who can teach. And so, that's what we're looking at. So they say, well, what's wrong? What's wrong with that picture? Whether you like it or not, a good history teacher can teach students history. When they are done, students know history. The student also knows where to look in case they forget the date or some obscure event that happened. If a person is a teacher of those who aspire to teach history, in other words, a professor, that person will be able to teach a student to teach history as well as know it. A teacher must be able to teach first, then he or she may pick the subject she wishes to teach. There ends the game. Are you getting the point? Let's get to the truth of this thing, what it's all based on. Let's get to the truth. The ability to teach is more than 60% gift. The ability to teach is more than 60% gift. Now, they haven't done this very often, but they did it here. It's kind of a different way of looking at things. How much more than 60%? We won't say, but the point is the same. The ability to be a good doctor is more than 60% gift. The ability to be good in any field is more than 60% gift. What does that mean? if you were to teach a person who had absolutely no gift for teaching, everything about teaching, no gift at teaching, everything about teaching, and he or she learned everything, he or she would be at least 20% less a teacher than a fully gifted but uneducated person. Do you see why we want no false degrees? What do they? Let's go back. What do they say? If teaching is 60% gift, then 40% is what's left. No ability to teach, in other words. So you have a person who has absolutely no gift, no ability to teach whatsoever, and you teach them everything you can possibly teach them. That person is got 40% less teaching ability than somebody that's totally uneducated. That's what they're saying. And believe me, they're saying the same thing about doctors, and they're saying the same thing about all kinds of stuff. If you go into the teaching profession because it's good money and it's dictatorial stuff and you like that, that makes you a pretty lousy teacher. And if you have no gift for teaching, you're not going to come close to somebody that's got a gift. And then you get to the point where you have to say, why are they there then? They're there because they have a degree. Okay, they say, do you see why we want no false degree? We want tests to show who can teach. We want tests that show who can doctor. Not who knows stuff or who's cheated at school or whose father's wealthy, but who heals, who teaches, whatever, who's an investigator. Not the suit guy that has been a cop most of his life, but an honest to God investigator and can prove it. What good the operation, what good the class, what good the judge if the end results are death, ignorance, and dissatisfaction? No false degree. It can't be taught alone. That doesn't mean that all who have degrees are frauds. Fortunately, those who have the gift are attracted to the college and then to the degree. But not all. Some have no ability at all, no gift at all. And they're out there. So they do, however, have a degree, and we must weed them out and remove them from the profession. Be it a teacher, doctor, judge, or whatever, accurate tests for the ability to do the profession is what the answer is, and that's what they're saying all the time. They're always saying, you've been conned by these game players into thinking that a degree is an accurate measure of your ability to do the thing, and it isn't. They're saying, no way, and test for it now. Stop taking the degree for the equal to the ability and start finding out if they have ability. And we can do that right in the school system, and they go right into that eventually. And of course, there's a bunch of teachers that are not going to be happy, and there's a bunch of teachers that are going to be real happy. There's going to be a lot of adults real happy, and kids are never happy to be taught, but they kind of don't mind knowing. And so they say, accurate tests for the ability in all professions, that's the answer. That is what the accountability means in a bureaucratic system. In truth, we might take back college and university from the intelligence game players and deem proof of the ability before the degree is given. Then a college or university who gives a degree which is later found to be false, in other words, people can, if you have a bunch of people who have just graduated from your college or your university and somebody tests them and they fail, the college or university that gave that degree might have to answer for the degree. They might have to answer for it in court, legally. And so, at the very least, there might be heads chopped. Okay, so they say, well, so ends the history lesson. Now you begin to understand why they're, now the first thing you've got to get kind of closer to your understanding is there's something wrong with the education system. Everybody knows that. Okay, they've done research and they've done this, and we need to pay this teachers more, and we need better schools, and we need. Well, they're saying, why don't you just sit down and say, why don't you sit down and analyze it and figure out what it is that you really need instead of all this, and every single time it's more money, that they come up with, okay, we need more schools, that's more money. We need pay the teachers more, that's more money. What did they say here? So far, they haven't said anything about more money. And they've kind of pinned it down to some pretty serious failures. So they say, so ends a history lesson, knowing how we got to where we are now. Let's take a look at this school system. This is what we see. Poor teaching ability in most schools. Those who take offense, and there will be many before we are through, think about it. Have you ever been taught to teach effectively? Do you get rewarded for teaching children, or is there other measures not related to teaching by which your pay is determined? Ooh. I think we've got the majority of teachers now on our side. Is the sick game of politics played in your school? Now we got 70%. Have you known good teachers that have quit because they've had to do all manner of things not related to teaching in order to keep their job? 80%. Were they thwarted in their work by those who knew far less than they about the job? 95%. Do you know any teachers that have absolutely no business in your school system? 99%. Then where's your complaint? Things must be changed. We see the schools that are unsafe for the student, and the teachers and students that quit before the student has a chance to complete high school. We see schools that are unsafe, and we see, students that quit before they've completed high school. We see teachers quit that are really good teachers. What are we? We see teachers that had no business in the teaching profession, and they know it. We see schools that teach subjects that have no bearing on any part of a student's life, and the schools that don't teach those things that are so critical to a student's future life. We see huge, expensive school systems and know that something much smaller would get the job done even better. What did they say? We see huge, expensive school systems and know that something much smaller would get the job done even better. We see atrocious incomes paid to people who don't do anything constructive at all. Now, every single bureaucratic research into what's wrong with the schools has always come up with, we need more money. You hear what they said? They said, we don't need big, huge schools. We don't need to pay atrocious incomes to people that don't do anything constructive. We need to find out how students are taught. We need to find out who those teachers are that can do it. We need to find out how big the schoolroom is to get the job done, how big or how small. We need to, do a lot of things like that. I'm not even sure that they wouldn't get around to don't go to school. You have to go to your computer and you have to take these courses. I don't know. There's just, what they say is these are just a few things that we see now. As we continue, some of our suggestions will come into question. We ask that you compare what we suggest to what you see now, not the ideal picture that they would paint for you. It isn't how it should be or could be, it's how it is. That's what we would want you to compare what we're suggesting to. Were the new system implemented, would you see many changes? Would you? You bet. These changes will, in the end, make the school system more effective, make it teach what your child needs to know, and do that with far less of your hard-earned money. Measure that against the school system that's now. The new system will win hands down. Enough of the now school. We know that there's trouble there. We now move to solutions for the problem. Let's start with the need to teach rather than to have a degree. How is the ability to teach to be determined? That might be your question. Our question is, why are there movies on those few who have taught students so well that they scored unbelievably high on tests, and yet their teaching methods were not incorporated into teaching classes? Our question. You've seen those movies where the teacher just took these ghetto students, and all of a sudden they were passing so high that the testing group called them fraud, and they were cheating, and made them really get down where they couldn't cheat and tested them again, and they still passed. And were those methods that teacher was using passed on to the United States? I don't think so. What happened to them? We don't know. But why?